Hey up everyone and welcome back to some more combat mission where I'm playing against Gnarly from the Few Good Men in combat mission final Blitzkrieg. I've only played Gnarly once before and he pretty comprehensively kicked my teeth in, all the time showing off how nice the weather was down in Australia where he is, compared to how crap, soggy and cold it is in Yorkshire where I am. So when he got back to me just before Christmas suggesting that we have another game, I was pretty determined to even up the scoreboard a bit. What we decided on doing was a probe, with me defending as the Americans and Gnarly attacking as the Germans on this map. We've got some rolling hills with some isolated farming settlements to deal with. We've got this L-shaped stream, but the big problem for both of us is that there is a lot of open space. Fields are really bad for your health. So from my perspective as the defender, what I want is depth. I want to have the outpost line out in front. I want to be able to see where the main attack is coming in and move my forces to react to that instead of trying to defend everywhere at once. The problem is all this open space means that my outpost line is going to be in the middle of an open field, which should be very unhealthy, and trying to move my forces to react to whatever Gnarly is doing is going to involve moving across a lot of open space, which is also very unhealthy. So we're going to have to try something else. And what I've come up with is a strong point defense. So instead of trying to be fancy and flexible and get all the maneuver warfare stuff up and running, what I've ended up with is these three strong points. One in each of the small objectives up front, then I've got one further back. So we have a kind of triangle arrangement. It's not perfect because all these positions are fairly obvious, but on the flip side they're obvious because they're the only real cover about. So I'm kind of screwed either way here. The important thing about these positions is that they are mutually supporting, which is to say that each one helps to defend the others. By having these mutually supporting positions, what I can do is stop the enemy from getting up to one position with fire from another, and vice versa. So the attacker kind of gets into this crossfire defilade arrangement, but ultimately I'm not kidding myself here. I'm expecting Gnarly to put the pressure on, and I'm expecting him to be pushing into my strong points. So they're not designed as a hard point per se, they're designed as a sponge. The main aim of the troops in these areas is to protect the heavy weapons, which are going to be doing most of the killing, the fixed MGs, the mortars, the tanks, and also to slow the enemy down when he gets close enough for me to bomb the crap out of him. All of these strong points have target reference points in them, so if Gnarly gets close enough, hopefully I'm going to be able to pin him in place with these little infantry fire teams scattered all over the place and hit him with some mortars. I've got a 3-tube 81mm mortar battery off the map on standby for that. I also, because I'm the Americans, I get the American superpower, planes, 2 P-47s. One is just on a strafing run, but it has 8 50 caliber machine guns, which is enough to ruin anybody's day. And the second one is on a light mission, and it has a couple of little bombs as well. So I'm going to be calling them in, keep them buzzing around, keep the pressure up on Gnarly, because the way I've set my defense up, I can't react very well to what Gnarly's going to be doing. So what I need to do is put the pressure on him by having the planes coming in strafing things. My main worry though is that he's going to ignore the two strong points at the front, and he's going to punch through this orchard, down across this stream, up the valley on the other side, and attack the high ground, because I don't have anything up there. I've got the HQ, the XO, and a forward observer up there, hiding in these houses where they can have a good view of what's going on, and so that I have some bodies in that objective. But apart from that, it's totally defenseless. And if he punches through there and takes that high ground, he's going to do a good job of unhinging my defense. So I'm banking on two things. First of all, I'm banking on him thinking that that's too risky because it's an objective, reasonable to expect me to have some troops up there. Second of all, I've got this squad over here which I've split up into teams, and they're in foxholes just on the edge of the reverse slope, so when they stand up in the foxholes they're looking over, but as soon as they take cover they're down safe again. Hopefully he's going to be able to see them, and he's going to decide, okay, Hapless has got some troops over there, let's not go that way. It's a calculated risk. If he does do it, I'm in trouble, but we'll see how it goes. We're going to jump in at about the 10-minute mark because this is when Gnarly and I both upgraded to version 4, and there's a little bit of graphical weirdness going on in the pre-upgrade turns. The quick version of what's happened is Gnarly is getting his fire support set up on the ridgeline here. and he's starting to push little groups of infantry down across the field on my far right. And there's not too much I can do about that, really. I've already opened up with an MG team on some of them, and the MG quickly got shut down by some tank fire, so this is smart stuff from Gnarly. If I open up on his infantry as they dribble across, then at most I'll only get a few kills at the cost of revealing my position and getting hammered. Of course, if I don't open up, then he's going to be getting his men across without too many problems. So he's got me in a good catch-22. I have got the wild card, though. Those troops in the open are nice, easy targets to plane number 1, and the pilot is having a trigger-happy whale of a time. He's even having so much fun, he's occasionally going after targets outside the target area I've given him, which is a little bit worrying. It wouldn't be the first time I've gotten strafed by my own damn planes, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. And I've got my 2 heavy machine guns at the back spraying the fields with some long range area fire to try and slow Gnarly's pixel tripping down a bit so they stay out there in the open where the pilot can see them. I'm not too worried about the HMGs getting spotted. They're a long way back, they're concealed in some buildings. They're firing at a range of 800-900 meters. They should be fairly safe, they're not going to give their position away. But at the end of the day, I'm just delaying the enemy a bit here, and inevitably the first field grey dressing gowns turn up to assault the building my MG team got hit in. And this is really good news, because now that Gnarly's coming out of the orchard, where I kind of know where he is, but I don't have a proper bead on him, and he's approaching this first farm compound, I can get the Crossfire up and running. At the left-hand farm, I've got a Sherman and a machine gun firing into the side of the compound that Gnarly's now pushing into, while being tucked away out of sight of enemy fire support up on the ridgeline. It's about 450 meters, so the machine gun fire in particular isn't being tremendously effective, but along with the GIs already in that compound putting the fire out, they're pinning the enemy in place for a quick mortar barrage. Even though Gnarly's invisible tank up on the ridge quickly lays into my little rifleman team hanging around in the compound and they break and leg it, they've done their job. They've made these mortars nice and effective, and I'm willing to bet that I've come off best here. The plane's not to be outdone though, and not only does it strafe some of Gnarly's infantry in the orchard at the edge of the barrage, but it has a go at something up on the ridge line too, and whatever it is, it explodes in a very, very satisfying way. So that's the right sorted for the time being. But Gnarly's also been pushing over on the left. He's getting set up in this little village here, and he's starting to mass some troops in the ditch as a fairly obvious prelude to an attack. I should have had a TRP down in that ditch because it's such an obvious start line and it really deserves some mortar fire right now, but I don't. Instead, I'm just relying on the Crossfire again. I've got another defilated hull-down Sherman and a 60mm mortar team ready to sweep that slope clear of any Germans who try to cross it, which they do a pretty good job of. All the way up that slope, Gnarly's troops have nothing to shoot at, nothing to see, until they've come into line of sight of the Sherman and the mortar, who are a couple of 100 meters away on the other side of this little dip, at which point they start getting hammered. So far it's all going well. Except for the M36 Jackson at the back. This is in a dumb position. I can't remember exactly why I trapped it in a compound like this when it would be much better off on one of the reverse slopes further back, and now Gnarly has a Panther up on the ridgeline aiming right at it, and I'm very, very lucky that the Panther's first shot goes high, because that's allowed me to scurry the Jackson forward behind a building and out of sight. Meanwhile, another one of Gnarly's tanks has turned up. A Tiger, which is just wonderful, seeing as though my 2 Shermans can't deal with it where they are, and the Jackson is too busy being useless. On the plus side, by now it's looking like Gnarly is after the left-hand farm. The Tiger's there, that's usually a good indication of where the main effort's going to be coming in, and it's shooting the crap out of everything. Gnarly's also dropping some mortars on it. There's plenty of activity over in the village on the other side. It looks like he's building his infantry up over there, and even though he's pushing up a little bit on the right as well, he keeps getting a bloody nose. The fire's really coming in now, and some German infantry have actually made it across the slope and into the barns on the edge of the compound. Now, I don't have any men in the barns because Gnarly's going to be able to see them and put fire on them. All my men are in the farmhouse on the inside of the compound, so when Gnarly's men come into the barns, they suddenly get spotted and my guys can open up. Even the flamethrower is having a good time. My guys really aren't having any problems with this. Gnarly's still putting the pressure on though. Most of his suppressive fire is coming in on the left hand side of the compound, which is where I'm worried about, and now he's throwing a half-track platoon across, and it looks like he's going to try and attack the left with it. I'm Fortunately for Gnarly, right-hand Sherman can still get a bead on them, and it gets shut down pretty quick. A few minutes later, just as plane number 2 starts bombing things, Gnarly proposes a ceasefire, and I accept. And the result is a tactical victory. I've taken minimal casualties here, 9 dead and 4 wounded. Mostly in that far right compound where Gnarly got the hits in with his tanks. Mostly a stug here, I think. And in return, I've killed 75 Germans and wounded another 54, knocking out a few vehicles in the process. Now, all in all, this is an effective defense. Most of the killing was done by the 2 Shermans. One has 25 kills and the other has 15. And of course, thanks to the new feature of Upgrade 4.0, you can now see how many kills your artillery and air power have caused. So the planes together caused 25 casualties, but realistically I think the main effect of the planes is psychological. Gnarly really couldn't do very much about them, especially seen as though the mystery explosion on the ridge turned out to be an AA vehicle. This kind of powerlessness is the kind of thing that really saps the will to fight. It's all well and good to physically destroy the enemy, but a lot of the time it's a lot more cost effective to just persuade him to give up. That's the real world of tactics and strategy though, and Gnarly and I are just playing a game here. We're here to enjoy ourselves, and whether you think that something as uncounterable as air power should be part and parcel of the historical World War II experience of a war game like this, but whether it should be restricted in some way or another, is really between the 2 players playing the game. Obviously your mileage will vary. Here we didn't have any restrictions at all, so I had the opportunity to take some air power, and at 30 points and 90 rarity you really can't say no to some strafing runs. But that's enough of that. We had a good, solid example of some mutually supporting positions here in a successful defense. So hope you enjoyed that, guys. I've got some more combat mission Black Sea in the pipeline. Got a couple of interesting fights going on. So take care until then, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.